I always say we lift weights all day. They're just not shaped as dumbbells. They're
Thank you.
shaped as grandbabies and
Yeah.
grocery bags and pallets of water and gardening soil. Those are all weights. And again, like when we think about what I want to be doing to our 90s and 100s, we want to be lifting those weights still. So in order to do that, we need to be doing that now. It's an investment in ourselves now. If we're 60s, it's an investment now into your 80 and 90-year-old self.
Welcome to another Finishing Strong podcast. If you haven't joined us before, Finishing Strong is dedicated to helping people transition from working full time to something else and to integrate their faith with their new purpose. I'm excited to be joined today by Erin Eleutario, founder of Second Act Fit Pros. Erin is a functional aging specialist who works directly with the older adult community and also trains people who want to be a fitness pro serving the older 50 population. Erin's currently organizing a community of people around the country who are interested in the health span of older adults by encouraging exercise and movement. Erin offers some great insights into easy, fun movements that will help us improve our endurance, our strength, and balance. Please join me in welcoming Erin Eleutario. Well, I'm happy to have Erin Eleutario with me today. Erin is the founder of Second Act Fit Pros. And so thank you for taking time to be with us and share your story and some of the things you're doing for those of us who are aging and getting older.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invite.
So tell us, I was looking at your background, and you've really been into the kind of functional fitness for aging. It feels like since you got out of college, you're officially a functional aging specialist, and you've been doing it for a long time. So describe to us what is that? What do you do?
So right now I'm currently working with older adults, primarily people over 70 at a senior living facility and at a local senior center. I teach mostly group classes. So that's currently what I'm doing. I teach classes on balance, mobility, strength training, getting people to move around their environment in new and different ways, trying to build fall resiliency in people as well as strength. That's what I'm currently doing. I have a history of working in medical fitness as an exercise physiologist when I got out of college. And then I worked for Silver Sneakers for a number of years, doing more of the business side of things, working with partnered locations and health plans. And then throughout that whole time, I'd always been teaching group exercise. So I've always been involved in teaching, training, and group exercise for nearly my whole career. I did take a couple of years off and came back to it because I missed it so much and realized that I really wanted to double down on working with older adults. So I got the Functional Aging Institute certification, which specializes in for people that want to work with the over 50 population. But my degree is in kinesiology, and I took classes throughout college, specializing more of that older adult population. So for nearly my whole career, I've been working in this field.
Yeah. Well, and it as those of us who are baby boomers age, there's I think the number's 10,000 people a day that are baby boomers retire. And so, the workforce is changing, and the amount of people coming out of the workforce is changing. And we're all looking for ways to how do we live this next season in a safe and healthy way. You partner with a lot of people. We'll talk about your community in a little bit, but one of the other people that you're connected to is a functional nutrition practitioner. So how does functional aging specialists and functional nutrition match up?
Yeah, so functional nutrition is another certification that is out there, and I have in my community, which we could talk about more,
Mhm.
is the Second Act Fit Pros community, and I have
Mhm.
various health and fitness professionals within that community, and so a couple of our professionals in the community are functional nutritionists, and so it's really looking at nutrition, at helping people have a lifestyle revolved around nutrition to help with their health goals. So a lot of what, nutritionists do is kind of what we do on the physical side, but they're working
Mhm.
more on the nutrition side of things. So it complements personal training and the physical training a lot. So a lot of those professionals, or they're just trained in a lot of those nutrition background on how to keep people healthy, avoid metabolic disease, things like that.
Okay, well, great. So you mentioned it, and let's jump to that. You've got, in addition to your leading the classes at the senior center, you've got the organization that you also started that I mentioned earlier, Second Act Fit Pros. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's two things. It's my podcast for
Yeah.
one, and my podcast is featuring people that have taken on a second act or encore career in health and fitness, and those that are dedicated to working with that population. So that's one side of it. And then the other side is the community. And this is something I just launched last year. I piloted it last year. The majority of my people on my podcast have taken on a second act career in health and fitness. And nearly everybody on my podcast is over 50. And I love these people so much that I did not want it to end in that 1 hour interview. So I had piloted this idea of like, why don't we get together and form a community? Because everybody has shared values and a mission. And I think there was value in people knowing each other. So I launched this community last year, piloted it with a number of my podcast guests, and it's been a wonderful opportunity to have a supportive network of people where we're all nurturing each other's success, and everybody has so many years of experience working, and there's just so much that we can learn from each other. So there's a lot of peer-to-peer mentorship. So the community is going to launch publicly June 1st, but right now I've piloted it for the past about 6 months with podcast guests, finding out ways that we can stay connected, learn from each other, things like that. So I'm really excited about the community because I so respect what these people are doing, and I want them to feel like they have the support that they need to make the impact that they want to make in the world.
Well, that's interesting. So you get your technical skill. You take that technical skill and you use it in your actual direct coaching at the senior facility, and then
Mhm.
but now you're getting people to kind of do what you do
Mhm.
as fit pros who are in their encore, their second career, and then you've got the community of those people on top of that. That's tremendous. That's like full life cycle.
Yeah, it is. It is. But it's been such a joy. I just so love being connected to these people and supporting what they're doing.
So talk about this. I love the term, and I see a lot out there, the encore, or the
Mhm.
second act, or third act in some cases. And so there's so much, let's say, out there. I keep saying out there because that's part of what's on the domain, or research, or books, or speakers, or TED Talks, or whatever it is, of encouraging those of us who are what the term we use in finishing strong, transitioning from working full time to something else, whatever that something else might be. And for some, it's, they want to go out and lower their handicap. And for some, they want to travel. They might have the means to do that. But for the most part, people get fairly bored in this season when they don't have full time work. And you're offering this opportunity for people to reinvent themselves if this is a bent they have or an interest that they have. So
Mhm.
what makes a good candidate for somebody to transition in this encore and become a second act fit pro?
Yeah, I think if you have a passion for physical activity and health, I think there's so many opportunities within this
Mhm.
field to help promote physical activity for others. Because, like you said, a lot of times you retire and people are still looking for that purpose, like what's next, but
Mhm.
they don't want to do the 9 to 5 thing. And we lose a lot of our social network when we leave work, and that's huge. And so this is a way to keep people socially connected as well as encourage physical activity. So when I say fit pro, I think a lot of times people think fitness professional as in personal trainer.
Yeah.
And the people that I highlight on my podcast, I have had a few personal trainers. In fact, one of my oldest people that I've interviewed is 81, and he's world's oldest active personal trainer, and he's retired financial planner. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records, but he went on to be a personal trainer at a Gold's Gym. So it's kind of more like the traditional fitness professional.
Yeah.
But I've also featured people that, like there's a guy here locally in my town that started the Boomers Rock Climbing group.
Mm.
And so he leads that, and he's a retiree. And now it's just like a social group for rock climbers, and people are in their 60s and 70s and they rock climb together. So that's another way that somebody's, encouraging physical activity. I've also interviewed a lady that is retired, and she took up low flying trapeze. And now she's in her 70s and she teaches other women in their 70s, 80s, and even in their 90s circus arts, and particularly low flying trapeze. So it's really all the different various ways that people are encouraging others to stay active. And it doesn't have to be in a personal training sense at a gym, because, Jamie, you and I, we live in Colorado, and there's a
Yes.
lot of people that like to be outdoors.
Yeah. Right.
So, there's a club here locally that is the Pikes Peak Over the Hill Gang, and it's wildly popular, and it's a social club for people that want to do outdoor sports. So they're skiing and they're golfing together and hiking and traveling, and so many people want to be physically active, but they want somebody to lead them, and so that's part of this goal of my podcast, is to inspire people to take the lead. And if you're already an active person and you prioritize physical activity, bring that to your community and be a leader in some way, shape, or form, because it's not that people don't want it, but they're looking for a leader.
Yeah. And there's something so perfect about what you've developed, which is the fitness, but also age appropriate. And I've spent a lot of time in fitness centers, a lot of time in gyms, a lot of time in weight rooms, and for years, I've walked by a trainer working somebody out, training somebody who's older, and I think, why in the world are they having them do a 100-pound deadlift, or why are they doing that exercise that only is going to me, and I'm not a professional, so maybe it's safe given the assessment they did, but I'm looking at going, that person doesn't need to do that exercise, but any other part of their life, that's not a movement that's normal for them. And I'm always worried about someone getting injured in that. So tell us how you take that training and make it so focused on older adults.
Well, it's important to think about whether you're doing your own training program or you're training somebody, like what are the movements that you want to have for the remainder of your life? Like what are the things you still want to be
Yeah.
doing when you're in your 90s? And work backwards from that. Peter Attia has this great framework called the Centenarian
Yeah.
Olympics.
Yeah. I love that.
And
Tell,
it's
tell,
such
tell
a
listeners about that. I love that.
yeah, so it's basically he designed his training program based on what he wants to be doing when he's 100.
Yeah.
And so some of those things are like he wants to be able to squat down and lift up his grandchildren. And so he does goblet squats, and his goal is to be able to do 30-pound goblet squats, assuming that that's going to be about the weight of a small child. So he's training himself to have that stability and strength to do that. And then he talks about, wanting to be able to travel and put his luggage up on the overhead, compartment. So he needs that shoulder strength and that strength to push things overhead. So he's incorporating that into his training program now. And I think he's about 50 right now. And so he's taken all these things that he wants to be able to do, and he's kind of like, he's designed his training program around that. And I think that that's what we should all be doing, because we all want movement and longevity. We want to be able to do the things and engage in life in a way that's meaningful. And what are those things? And maybe for somebody it's gardening, and maybe for
Mhm.
somebody else they want to be doing archery into their 90s. So it's looking at that and looking at those movement patterns and what kind of strength mobility you're going to need, and structure your movement, your training around those things, because it's the whole adage, if you don't move it, you lose it.
Mhm.
And you do lose it, you will lose it. And so those things are important to just think about how we want to be moving as we get older.
So second act fit pros
Mhm.
are able to help someone, call it from the couch, get off the couch and move into these things. What are some exercises? What are some things that they can help people do so that they can have that functional ability when they get older?
Yeah. Well, for myself, for somebody that's working with the older adult population, I think there's some fundamental things that we can look at keeping as far as movement patterns as we get older. It's getting up and down from the floor.
Mhm.
We know that's really important, and that helps you be more resilient to falls, being able to get yourself up and down and have the leg strength and mobility for that. Walking fast, walking at a decent pace, because we've been able to see that that ties into longevity. When people slow down so much, now they become a higher fall risk. So being able to walk at a decent pace, having grip strength, being able to have strength in your hands so that you can catch yourself, it's a proxy for total body strength. So maintaining the strength of your hands, hanging is a great way to maintain the strength of your hands. It's also great for your shoulders. And another thing I think is important to think about is, when we think about training programs for movement longevity and do the things that we want to do, but we can also think about just having a movement rich lifestyle and how we build this into our day. So it's not such compartmentalized, like I go to the gym and this is the 1 hour and the one place that I move. And it should really be going throughout your whole day. And how do we continue to move throughout our whole day? We decide to take the stairs when we're at a store or in the airport rather than the elevator or escalator. We walk to our community mailbox. We don't drive to the community mailbox. It's all these things that seem so small, but they really, really add up. And those are things that I help maintain with our functional abilities as we get older, having the speed, having grip strength, being able to get up and down from the floor, and just moving and not always outsourcing our movement to machines, which is so easy to do in our modern world. That you have to be really intentional about moving your body because it's so easy to just tap on your phone and have food delivered and do everything. But we need to be moving our bodies.
I got that from one of your podcasts. I can't remember who the guest was, but it struck me how much, because I exercise regularly, but I do it almost always early in the morning, and then I sit at a computer like this all day. And that message that your guest gave was like, hey, that's great, but you need to be thinking about moving all day. And I've got to get up from the computer. I've got to move around. I've got to get up from the couch. I've got to keep moving, to your point, even those little things of taking the stairs instead of the elevator, the walk at Denver Airport instead of the moving sidewalk. So those are all great, and I am become such a disciple of Peter Attia and all those things you talked about. I've got a rucksack. I'm doing the hanging strength. I'm thinking about my protein, and we've got his book Outlive on our podcast, and so. A lot of our listeners are going to be 55 to 75. And so some are very, very active, right? I think some of the movement and balance things you do are definitely for the people who are really kind of struggling with some movement. But talk about that healthy 55-year-old and some of the things that I used to almost said we, but that's not we for me anymore. The healthy 55-year-old, give them sort of a projection for if they do this now, it will help them when they show up in your facility 20 years from now.
Yeah, I think even for the active person, it's really looking at having like movement variety because we see this a lot. I mean, there's a lot of aging athletes, or geriathletes is one of my guests call it, aging athletes. And so a lot of times we have these people, and I think we're all guilty of this. We have that one activity we love. We love biking, we love hiking, and that's the one thing that we do. And then we're losing out on a lot of different varieties of activities. So ensuring that we're getting lots of different movement variability into our day so that we're not just running in one plane of movement, that we're exploring movement with our bodies so that we just don't get so tied down to one form of movement, and ensuring that we're hitting all those things like strength. Like if all you're doing is endurance, then you need to be doing something for strength too. And vice versa. If all you do is strength, then we need to be looking at balance and endurance too. So having a balance of those things that we're working on, balance, mobility, variety of movement, strength training, and endurance training, and making sure we're getting all those components, because it's really easy to get honed into like your one thing and then lose focus on all those other things. And then it can have repercussions if you're only moving in one way.
Yeah. So, if I were to have you at the Finishing Strong workshop, which I hope to have you sometime, and there's men and women in this group, and you had an opportunity to begin to encourage them or coach them in some movements, what are some things you would have them get out of their chairs and do during our time together?
Yeah, so one of the classes I teach is it's a format that I trained on, and it's for parkour for people over 50.
Yeah, okay.
And it's something I teach online. I'm currently taking a summer break from it, but it's such a fun way because this is what kids do naturally. They explore their environment with their bodies. And we kind of lose doing that as we get older. We don't
Yeah.
do it as much. But if you ever watch a kid, they are doing all different things to find ways to locomote. They crawl over things, they roll, they jump. And so I think parkour is such a fun way to introduce to adults to bring back that fun of movement and variety of movement. Like we don't just have to walk from point A to point B. Maybe we get on our hands and knees and crawl. And it's
Mhm.
a fun, playful way of inviting movement patterns that we probably haven't done since we were a kid. And again, we're
Yeah.
getting that variety of movement, we're getting that playfulness, that fun. So I love obstacle courses as ways for people to problem solve how they're going to move around their environment and use their body to problem solve. So that's something I love to do with adults. And it's just a fun way of exploration and creative movement. So we can kind of get out of this box of
Yeah.
movement is running, it's is weightlifting, but there's so many other ways that we can move.
Well, that would be fun. We'll look forward to that. That sounds
Mhm.
like a great time together. There's so much emphasis today that I've seen that I read about, and Peter T is certainly one of the foremost spokesmen on this, and that's about as we age, or even before we really start to age, if people are listening to this in their 30s and 40s, the importance of resistance training. And um, as an endurance athlete, I've often just been on the bike, or I've been in the pool, or I've been out on the road running, or whatever it is, and have neglected strength as a regular part. It's been sporadic, but it hadn't been regular. Um, and you were just saying, I think sometimes there's this intimidation if you're at any age, and that intimidation to go into the gym if that's just not something that's comfortable, or you don't want to have weights at home, or just the whole idea of that we think about as dumbbells or barbells or something like this. So what have you learned about, and how can you encourage older adults to bring in some kind of effective resistance training into their regular movement?
Yeah, a couple of things is I talk about sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass and function as we age, and how much that it accelerates after the age of
Mhm.
50, and what that means in terms of physical functioning. Like when you lose muscle mass, you are losing physical functioning, and you're going to lose your ability to be independent. So the importance of it in that regard, and how it's tied to osteoporosis. Like sometimes those things are talked about separately, but they're really interrelated. And losing muscle mass will likely result in osteoporosis. So that importance of it maintains our mobility and our ability to be independent. But the other thing I think people don't really realize is that I always say we lift weights all day. They're just not shaped as dumbbells. They're
Thank you.
shaped as grandbabies and
Yeah.
grocery bags and pallets of water and gardening soil. Those are all weights. And again, like when we think about what I want to be doing to our 90s and 100s, we want to be lifting those weights still. So in order to do that, we need to be doing that now. It's an investment in ourselves now. If we're 60s, it's an investment now into your 80 and 90-year-old self. It's going to be like,
Mhm.
it's like a retirement account. You want to start banking it as early as you can. It's going to be easier now than later. So I think about that, how much weight we lift in our day-to-day
Mhm.
activities, and the importance for our independence and maintaining that strength. But also power is another thing that's equally as important as strength, because we do lose, and power is our ability to exert force with speed, and it takes those type 2 muscle fibers, and those they will decrease at twice the rate of type 1 muscle fibers. So we need to be also be working quickly, forcefully, doing some quick movements, jumping, things like that, so that we can maintain those muscle fibers as well, because those are
What
also
would,
important.
you mentioned jumping. What would another
Mhm.
force exercise be to work on that part of our strength?
Medicine ball slams,
Okay.
having weight that you're exerting or you're throwing, there's some kind of force into it. Sometimes you see like these wave tubes, things like that, like
Okay.
cleans, jerks. Those are all power moves that require have a speed component and a resistant component.
Right.
And those are just as important as just straight strength training.
And that's for any age. Any age can be doing just what you described, right?
Yeah, any age can be doing it. As with anything, you want to ease into it. If you have never done these things before, you don't want to start off with super heavy, but you can definitely, everybody should be doing these at any age. You could be doing power exercises. Ease into it, of course, if you're brand new to exercise.
Well, I don't want to throw the fear bomb out there, but what you
Mhm.
just described is super sobering, and it should be for us when you talked about, and really kind of begins with no exercise or limited exercise or movement in our 40s and 50s. Let's call it 50 and up, which leads to loss of muscle tone, which leads to osteoporosis, which leads to injury, which leads to all this stuff. It's a pretty scary prognosis going forward if we don't start taking care of this now. So
Mhm.
I'm going to ask you to unpack that a little bit more on a couple of those things on how much muscle mass do we lose once we get over 50, and what have you seen of the consequences of that?
Yeah, I can't think of the rate that we lose it off the top of my head, but it's about 50% of people over the age of 50 have sarcopenia, which means loss of muscle mass. And so it just accelerates as we get older if we don't do anything about it. And that's the important thing that I want to mention is that um, there's so many people that are active agers and are active athletes, and they
Mhm.
are maintaining their muscle mass, and they have the same muscle mass as somebody decades younger than them. So this is not an inevitable part of aging. It's more about deconditioned than it is about aging. It's when you stop moving, yeah, you're going to have sarcopenia. And that's true for somebody in their 30s as well. So I think it's so tied to being age related, but so many of these active agers have shown that it's not like this future that's it for everybody. It's not
Mhm.
an inevitable thing. So I think that's a really encouraging thing is that people are maintaining their muscle mass, the people that have prioritized exercise and are still doing their strength training, and people have reversed that. Like even though they didn't start weight training until their 70s, they're
Mhm.
getting their muscle mass back. They're
Yeah,
able to build muscle. So that's an important part. It's never you're not too old, it's not too late.
that's a great encouragement for everybody. So world's out there, we get bombarded with a lot of information. What would you rank? Diet, resistance training, aerobic training? How would you rank those? And what's the most important that you've seen?
Yeah, so I'm definitely partial to resistance training. So I would put
Okay.
resistance training, power training, I would put those together.
Okay.
And then I would do endurance training and nutrition because a lot of times that muscle training can improve your metabolism and how you're metabolizing carbs. And so that helps a lot on the nutrition side, but that's kind of how I would rank them. But I would definitely
Yeah.
include power with just straight resistance training um, as a priority.
And I think for people who are listening who happen to be taking advantage of the new technology, the new science, and the semi-glutides, the Ozempic, and so controversy on whether people should be doing that or not. I've seen results. I've seen positive results in lots of people with that. But one of the big warnings out there, right, is that you can lose that weight, but if you begin to lose too much muscle weight,
Mhm.
you've got a long-term impact of the weight loss now. So that encouragement to, if you're going to use that, make sure you're getting your protein, make sure you're getting resistance training, and don't let that be the area of weight loss for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think a lot of times people talk about weight loss and we lost that nuance because we don't want to lose muscle mass at all when we get older.
Yeah, yeah. So you're in a long elevator ride, and with the listener, and they say, "Tell me, just get me going. What are 4 or 5 things I can start doing in my daily routine? Just give me something to get me started." What would you tell
Yeah. Well, I first always want to make sure that it's fun for them. I think that
them?
that's the thing that we've
Yeah,
lost
amen.
track of.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's like this thing that we have to do. Like, what's fun for you? Like, what's going to make this fun for you? And trying to give them things that are going to be enjoyable for them. So it's not something that's a slog. So I think that that's always the important part of
Yeah.
when we're encouraging physical activity
Yeah.
is make it fun and make people feel connected to other people. And that's what helps with the adherence part. But as far as like 5 specific things to do, I mean, I think those movement snacks that we talked about, like how can we get in, getting up and down from the floor? Can you do that
Mhm.
once or twice a day? Can you take time to walk fast? Just do a little interval. If you're walking your
Mhm.
dog, maybe from
Yeah.
one driveway to another driveway, you're going to walk fast. Little ways that we can build in those movement patterns, hanging. If there's an opportunity to be at a playground with your grandchildren, can you
Mhm.
hang? Can you hang from a door frame?
Mhm.
Um, are there ways to work your grip strength that way? And then looking at your lifestyle of like, how can you get more movement in? It doesn't have to be in the form of necessarily exercise program, but it is just moving around your environment more, you're taking breaks, not sitting in the same, not even if it's just not sitting in the same way anymore. I sit on
Yeah.
the floor a lot because it encourages a lot more movement for my hips, knees, all of that. So those are things that I would recommend.
Well, that's great. I like your anchor with fun. Let's make it fun and just bring that and make it part of our lifestyle. Well, one of the things we encourage people in finishing strong, and it's really the kind of the end focus of our workshops is encouraging people to in the season to find their new purpose. Maybe it's similar to what they've done in the past. Maybe it's something brand new. Maybe it's a second act of some kind or another. My observation is you seem to be living out your current purpose right now, helping people and changing lives. Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? Where are we going to see Erin doing 5, 10 years from now?
Wow, I hope that I have built a thriving community of people that are really making a positive impact and keeping people physically active and socially connected in their later years. I hope to be making a difference in that front and recruiting more people to be on the side of things and you call it Fit Pro, but being having more leaders that are leading physical activities for other people because this work is very meaningful, but we're only one person doing the best work that we can in our community, and there's definitely room for more. So I would
Yeah.
love to be seeing this community of people built and grow more
Yeah.
people.
Well, I'm,
Mhm.
I'm I'm sure it will. And so can anybody be a part of your community? Can anybody get your newsletter, or only people who are getting credentialed in
No.
FitPro?
Oh, no, anybody can be a part of the newsletter.
Okay.
Again, the community launches June 1st, but if you sign up for the newsletter, I have updates there. And I always put updates on my LinkedIn site as well as my social media. So it's anybody that wants to be in this field. That's what, even if you're thinking like, I might want to do this, I'm not really sure, come join us because everybody here has a passion for this work and we want to nurture the growth of everybody in this field and feel like they have a safe place to be and people that have their backs. So yeah, if anybody's interested in getting in this work, we would love to have you join the community.
Great. Well, you were nice enough to send me a number of your newsletters. They are rich with content and it
Oh,
links
thank
to
you.
more content and more articles. And I had to put them down because I was spending a lot of time looking through there and really
Welcome.
enjoying that. So
Thank you.
I'll put it in the show notes, but tell us real quickly, what's the best way people can connect with you in the newsletter?
Yeah, so my website is Erin Elu, ERINELEU, .com. And that's my current website right now, getting one built for Second Act Fit Pros, but it's erinelu.com. And there's a link to sign up for the newsletter there. And then on social media, I have Second Act Fit Pros on Instagram and Facebook, and then on LinkedIn, Erin Eleutario. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So those are all the ways that you can get in touch with me.
Okay, great. And I think I also got you through in the podcast world, Second Act Fit Pro podcast, easy to pop
Yes,
up as well
yes.
to watch the podcast. So,
Mhm.
well, Erin, thanks for being with us today. I hope we
Yeah,
can do it again and look forward to possibly working with you in one of the Finishing Strong workshops. So thanks
that
for
would be
your
great.
time.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining our Finishing Strong podcast today. In our show notes, we give you the link to Erin's website, erinelu.com, along with a link to her Second Act Fitness Pro podcast. You can reach out to Erin through her website, subscribe to her newsletter, and become part of her fitness community. You can also learn about us at www.finishing-strong.org, where you can register for one of our upcoming workshops or sign up for a retirement coaching session with me.